about the idea of worship. I mean, there's not many words in our English language when you get into kind of religious circles that has more division than the idea of worship. We have, I mean, you have from the outside, you have people who define themselves as agnostics or atheists. They have a real simple definition of worship. It is the practice of one's religion. Boom, like boom, it's like a nice little box. You get on the other side, particularly in the Christian section, you get this plethora of ideas. I mean, we got worship, and then we have worship services. We have worship music. Then we tell people to worship. And then we talk about how worship is a lifestyle. It's something you be. You know, it's just get kind of confusing. But one thing that you can definitely see is that the idea of worship is very closely knit to the collective experience we call church. So what this is, what we're talking about tonight, is the articulation, the shaping, and the dimension of worship. So it kind of just gives us some verbiage to this passion and to this truth that we know deep inside each one of us. So we're going to jump into the scripture. In John's account of the ministry of Jesus, he records a particular interaction. John records of Jesus and a Samaritan woman. It's found in the 4th chapter. Okay, after Jesus' famous discourse with Nicodemus and the ideas of being born again, Jesus' reputation had actually become, it just continued to spread to the point where it was common knowledge that Jesus' ministry and his followers was bigger than John the Baptist. So tension was building in Jerusalem. It was just getting hot. So Jesus and his disciples say, let's just chill out for a little bit. So they traveled back to Galilee. They decided to go through Samaria. And as you probably know, Samaritans, Jews didn't get along at all. Samaritans, the Jews were considered half-breeds, and they were just completely hated by the Jews. They had fully embraced Greek and Roman culture, but the issue with the Samaritans and Jews goes much deeper. Samaria was actually a second capital to Israel after it split. It was the second capital of the southern kingdom. So after it split underneath Rehoboam, was Solomon's son. And it's actually Samaria where Ahab ruled during the whole Mount Carmel incident, and it's in Samaria where Ahab built the altars and the temples to the idol Baal. So Samaria to the Jews was every form of abomination. They had nothing to do with them. They called them dogs. And here comes Jesus walking through the Samaritan village of Sychar and just hangs out at the well. So we'll pick up John chapter 4, verse 7. Just be a little dialogue as we go through. It's reading from the New Living Translation. Soon a Samaritan woman came to draw water, and Jesus said to her, "Please give me a drink," because he was alone at the time, because the disciples had gone into the village to buy some food. Now the woman was surprised, for Jews refused to have anything to do with Samaritans. Wouldn't you be surprised? I mean, duh. Especially after that long history context, we understand, oh yeah, she'd be surprised. And so they dialogue. And the woman questioned Jesus about several different things. At one point, Jesus asks her to bring her husband. And she says, "I don't have a husband." And verse 17 picks up, he says, "You're right, you don't have a husband. For you've had 5 husbands, and you aren't even married to the man, or you're living with now." You never know. Different cultures, they embrace Roman culture, I'm just saying. Sir, the woman said, "All things are possible," especially when in Rome. Sir, the woman said, "You must be a prophet." And then the discussion culminates on proper worship practice. And in verse 20, she says, "So tell me, why is it that you Jews insist that Jerusalem is the only place of worship, while we Samaritans claim it is here at this Mount Gerizim, where our ancestors worship?" And Jesus replied, "Believe me, dear woman, the time is coming when it will no longer matter whether you worship the Father on this mountain or in Jerusalem. For you Samaritans know very little about the one you worship, while we Jews know all about him. For salvation comes through the Jews. But the time is coming, indeed it's here now, when true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and in truth. For the Father is looking for those who will worship him that way. For God is spirit, so those who worship him must worship in spirit and truth." You know, I don't know how many times I've read that passage and heard it preached, because after all, we all spout true worship, worship in spirit and truth. But about 2 years ago, I kind of bumped up against a realization that I had never seen before. Throughout the Gospels, anytime Jesus interacts with people, he always speaks in a way that they understand. If he spoke with Pharisees or teachers of the law, it was always, he would spout the prophets and the law when he talked with them. If it was with people who had no framework of anything spiritual, he used parables. And here in this situation, he's speaking to a woman who's very callous towards everyone. To be on the 6th relationship, utter disgrace. Look at the time she's drawing water. It's the middle of the day. So that normal custom was in the evening. All the women would come together and do it. It's kind of a social thing. We kind of have, the nail salon now, but they drew water. That's what they did. That was how they got together.
No need to be personal.
So she is either one of trying to avoid the judgmental stares, or two, she's no longer welcome. And it's not explicitly written, but when she responds to Jesus about the whole husband issue, she says, "Sir, you must be a prophet." I think that's a little sarcasm, because it's like, "Oh, you must be a prophet." And Jesus responds in a way that kind of breaks through that wall that she had set up. And his statement about worship is fascinating. I don't know if you've ever really noticed it. I had never done it. But he says, true worshipers will worship, for God is spirit, so you have to worship him in spirit. It's a little double reference. It's a little sarcasm. And basically he's saying people made this way too complicated.
There you go.
It is a statement of the obvious. If you trying to define what self-control is. Self-control means to control oneself.
Yeah.
That's it. You're done. Duh. Jesus is saying the same thing, that there's many things about God and about this creator that we can't comprehend. Worship shouldn't be one of them. And it is God's spirit, your spirit. God's spirit and my spirit. That is the essence of worship, is connecting spirit to spirit. Now what Jesus means when he's talking about the word spirit, we kind of understand people are comprised into 3 parts. We have your body, your mind, your spirit. Now some people like to say body, soul, and spirit. Others don't even like the whole soul spirit idea, and they just go body, mind, heart. Either, any type of way, even secular psychologists notice that there's this progression of depth into our psyche and who we really are. And so that deepest part, that's our spirit. That's who we really are. And the Greek word used here that says for God's spirit and our spirit is the word pneuma, which is really cool. It literally means immaterial. The simple essence, the intangible part of who we are. So we have the body, that's your physical, 5 sensory receptors. Then your soul or your mind, the emotional personality traits, or quirks, depending on who you're talking to. And then there's spirit, it's what's left, it's that essence. So worship is about connecting on this spirit level. That deepest part of who you are, connecting with the deepest part of who God is.